Is XRP on the precipice of becoming the first $1 trillion altcoin? Today, we're going to break down several different catalysts for the crypto market that lead us to believe not only are we undervalued, we could be looking at a $20 asset by the end of 2025. Crypto ETFs, Wall Street adopting digital assets, and most importantly, the regulation of cryptocurrencies inside the United States. We're going to show our listeners how many of these major catalysts are already starting to impact the crypto market, leading us to believe that many of the digital assets today are still severely undervalued. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Good Evening Crypto, your favorite crypto news related channel. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button and subscribe as we do an update every single day, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. And today is a very special and unique video. You're going to want to stick around until the end of the episode to realize all the unique benefits of leveraging the XRP ledger and the XRP credit cards that have just been launched inside the United States. But we're going to start right here. Jake Claver telling us how $1 trillion altcoin, it's going to happen sooner than we think.
I was just going to go back to the mistakes, and you guys, I would be interested in y'all's opinion on this. I think market cap, people look at market cap and they go, oh, you can't have, trillions of dollars in market cap in these networks. I think people are going to be very surprised by what the market cap of some of these networks go to, because they're used to looking at it like a stock, where all of those shares are traded. But circulating supply and available supply or total supply of a token are very different.
Right.
I'm excited to see some of the market caps of these digital assets far surpass, these $1 trillion companies that you're used to seeing on the stock market.
Well, that's a good point. I keep telling people that it's the first time in history where the technology is also the asset, and that's where it gets hard. Because, like you're mentioning, total value locked. If we were to say, X asset manager, manages trillions, no one blinks an eye. These networks can essentially do this.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're bang on.
And Mario, we've already seen this start to take place here inside the American markets, as over the weekend when XRP reached 184 billion in total market cap, we passed BlackRock for total market cap. That goes to show how powerful these ecosystems are. And what Jake Claver is doing, he's just extrapolating that growth over a long period of time. When you look at how much money is sitting on the sidelines and ready to enter a project like XRP, these are the moments that we were speculating on back in 2021. The ETFs, the regulation of the market, and now stablecoins and smart contracts on the XRP ledger. These are all of the major catalysts that we were begging for just a couple of years ago. Now they exist in the American markets today. And we're looking at these ETF filings that are set to be approved come October. It is some of the biggest companies in the American economy. Grayscale, Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, and 21 Shares. We are looking at over $2 trillion worth of asset managers sitting on the sidelines, ready to start pitching these projects come October. And it's not just about the $2 trillion they have in assets under management, Mario. It's about the millions of clients all across the country that trust these financial institutions to handle their money. That is why this is the moment we've all been waiting for. 2025 is the moment where Wall Street wakes up to the power of digital assets. And it's when people like me, you, and everybody listening today can benefit off of that financially. If you guys agree, 2025 is the year. Smash that like button, leave a comment in chat. But Mario, it's not just that. It's also the XRP market multiplier. And I've showed this example several times on the channel. With these ETFs being turned on towards the back end of this year, the market multiplier becomes more important than ever. Canary Capital's CEO predicted $5 billion are going to come into XRP in the first 4 weeks after approval. As this illustration goes, $4 billion new US dollars, because the order books are so thin for XRP, pushes us to a $3 trillion market cap north of $50 US per XRP. Unbelievable times we're living in. I think it really is a matter of when, not if, for the XRP community. What are some of your thoughts?
Well, this is the thing I've always struggled with for the longest time. Is, to me, I don't disagree at all that the market caps can go much higher. What's new and unique and different is exactly what that man said there. It's the first time ever where the token is not the company. They're completely separate. The technology is separate, but the market cap is being based on the value of the token. And to me, that's what's fascinating about the whole thing. And as I've said this over and over again, none of us know how that's going to translate to value in market cap. But we're seeing right now what I call speculative market cap. So wherever we are today, those are mainly speculative, because let's face it, the whole world isn't running on this stuff yet. When the world starts running on it, Jake's not wrong. We're going to see trillions of market cap. The question is how it translates, because there's no earnings per share. The token doesn't earn a profit in transfer, or maybe some will, but they're tiny profits. So it's really going to be what's that value maybe that's running on the actual technology itself, on that blockchain that maybe drives its value. That's what's exciting, because he ain't wrong. It could be in the trillions, and I think we will get there for some of these. So to me, I think everybody's just got to sit back, wait, not really get too hung up on what the market caps are today. But to me, the most important part, I've said it over and over, it's two things. It's how much liquidity can come into the market and how much adoption happens. And we know the whole world is adopting this technology. Trillions of dollars of value are going to be living and transferring and moving every single day on the blockchain. And that's going to translate to a market cap that's going to be very, very big. So I'm excited about it. And you all should be too.
Well, first of all, I think that the ETFs are a great way to legitimize the space. It's a great way to introduce these crypto assets into accounts that otherwise most people on there would take some, extra time to get exposure. So by introducing these ETFs, now we've got an unlock of a massive amount of capital and accounts of people that can now be told, hey, you can get some exposure to Bitcoin ETF, you can get some exposure to an Ethereum ETF, and it's just a matter of time until Solana, XRP, Litecoin, Basket, also ETF baskets of other cryptos be introduced there. So to me, it's a massive signal of legitimization of this space, putting those names out there. And I couldn't agree more with Jake on that intro video that you played, Abs, where I do think that trillions of dollars can definitely be live on these blockchains. And, we see Bitcoin do exactly that today. We see Bitcoin being a over $1 trillion asset. And it's just a matter of time until the other ecosystems also become $1 trillion assets. When we talk, or $1 trillion ecosystems, I should say, because just from a perspective of tokenization, I mean, we're talking about a lot of trillions. We're talking about even quadrillions of value that can be tokenized. And to think that all that value is eventually going to live on a blockchain, I mean, that in and of itself translates into trillions of dollars being in certain blockchains. I wouldn't say just one, but definitely multiple.
And Mario, I think it's inevitable. We are going to see a BlackRock XRP ETF filing. If you agree with that, smash that like button. And we're going to listen to a short video of Jake Claver explaining how XRP could reach $2,500 by the calendar year 2026. But Mario, before we get into that, I wanted to elaborate on the inevitability of BlackRock filing for an XRP ETF. Here's some real data our listeners should be aware of. The CME Group said our crypto futures suite just surpassed $30 billion. That means Solana and XRP futures, along with Ethereum options, each crossed $1 billion in assets under management, with XRP becoming the fastest ever contract to do so, hitting the mark in just over 3 months. A whole lot of money is being made through these futures products, and even more money is going to be made through the spot products that are set to be approved in October. I've also got a brand new update out of Hester Pierce that we're going to show our listeners towards the end of the episode. Be sure to stick around for that exciting content. But this is Jake Claver explaining how we get to a $2,500 XRP.
Things that have to, it's the requirements for that to happen. A lot of people just say, oh, there's, flip a switch, get out of here with that stuff. There's actually global macroeconomic events that need to play out in order for that supply shock to take place to push it to that value. And that's what it would have to be. There's supply and demand economics. People look at total market cap, but in reality, it's whatever the supply is on the market for purchase that drives the liquidity and the market dynamics and value.
But can't they make more XRP?
They cannot. So originally there was 100 billion. XNS was what it was originally called, minted June 2nd of 2012. And they black holed that account. So what that means is nobody has access to it. They can't get back into it. They can never mint more. Nobody can freeze the XRP. It is locked at 100 billion and 5,000 of them are burnt every single day. So it's literally the only deflationary asset besides like uranium on the planet.
But that makes it more
things that have.
And there you have it, Mario. So it's a finite asset. And with these modern settlement systems like the NASDAQ or like Swift payments migrating onto blockchain products, there is only going to be more demand for blockchain ecosystems like XRP. Now, I just got this alert live on air. The U.S. government has just announced they are going to begin publishing economic data on blockchains. And who are the blockchain companies that are working closest to the U.S. government? That would be Chainlink, that would be Hedera, and that would be Ripple as well as XRP. So the demand only increasing as we sit here in 2025. Mario, before we get into this update, When you think about what's about to happen with the ETFs, the Clarity Act, and of course, Jake Claver's $2,500 prediction, a lot of that stems on the modern settlement upgrade. United States banks and global financial institutions using blockchain technology. That can only occur after regulation. So for a lot of our newer listeners who are saying, am I late to the crypto market? You are earlier than you think. Mario, floor is yours.
Well, I definitely agree with that statement, Abs. We are definitely earlier than we think. And, a great indication, and one of the things that I've been using to provide people as an example is the fact that on single days alone, we see $1 trillion, even over $1 trillion enter the stock market. And, the opposite, leaving the stock market. This market, we're talking 3 trillion. It's only 3 times more that. So still very early from that perspective. So tokenization is going to be a massive component of the crypto market and of the value that's going to enter the crypto market. But, I think that Jake explained it very well in that video. It almost sounded like, XRP is this beast that's been unleashed and you can't stop it. You can't mint more of it. You can't stop it from happening. It's here, whether you like it or not. And I think it's safe for us to agree on that the fact that the transition towards adoption is taking place. And we're seeing a lot of signs from obviously the US government and the change that took place over with the new administration. And all of those things have been creating sort of this domino effect for crypto to be really started to take in serious, which was something we knew was going to happen over many years now. But it became very difficult to see that at some point, especially throughout the last bear market, 22, 23, even some parts of 24. It became difficult to see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel for what crypto was supposed to do. And now here we have it. And I'm not surprised to hear that news as far as the government. I know that they were having some sort of hearing today. They were having some sort of roundtable where they were talking about basically Labor Day, but I know we might get into that later. So yeah, not surprised to see stuff like this. Abs, I would say to everybody, expect more developments, more connections, more utility, which is really the transition we're making, that we're going into right now.
And guys, we're going to break down the XRP credit cards that were just launched here inside the United States. If you're enjoying this content, smash that like button and subscribe to the brand new channel. Now, Mario, we're also going to play a brand new update from Hester Pierce talking about the Solana and XRP ETFs. Let's start breaking it down.
We have Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Everyone's, I think, waiting on a few other ones like Solana and Ripple and things like that. I only use Solana and Ripple because they're there's like 4 CME approved assets. I think it's like Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, and XRP. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, what do you think happens with ETFs? Like when do we get more essentially?
Well, I can tell you that our staff has been really inundated with applications for people wanting to do different ETPs and have been working very hard. I mean, the goal is to get to a listing standard that's sort of more generic so that people know what they have to do. And that's what we're working toward now. And I think once you have those in place, everything becomes easier.
Yeah. When will that framework come?
I mean, we're working, we're in the process right now. So I think.
Don't you like dealing with crypto people?
Yeah, I know. You guys always want
more.
Yeah. So certainly I'm not going to give you any specific dates, but I can tell you that, this is something that is certainly on our agenda and we're working very hard at.
Well, it's on the agenda and they're working very hard at it, Mario. And what we've seen over the past couple of weeks is a dozen companies have filed the S1 form for an XRP ETF. And I think there's a lot of listeners wondering, why is this important for us XRP investors? Well, a Form S1 is a registration statement filed with the SEC, and it's used by issuers to register new securities offerings with the SEC before they can be sold publicly. This form is commonly associated with initial public offerings, but it is also required for other types of public securities, such as an XRP ETF. Companies filing a Form S1 for an XRP ETF application because these are structured as investment vehicles that hold the XRP cryptocurrency directly, and the ETF shares need to be registered as securities for public trading on exchanges like the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange to go live. So it is mandatory that the S1s are approved before the XRP ETFs are trading live on the NASDAQ. This registration is a key step in the SEC approval process for launching an XRP ETF, similar to how it was used for both the Bitcoin and Ethereum spot products. As of August 2025, multiple asset managers, including Franklin Templeton, Wisdom Tree, 21 Shares, Bitwise, Canary Capital, and CoinShares, have submitted or amended their S1 filings for an XRP ETF, with the final deadlines coming around mid-October 2025. The filings aim to gain regulatory approval amid the growing institutional interest in XRP and following Ripple's legal win over the SEC earlier this year. But Mario, it's not just that these companies are interested, it's that their clients are excited about the idea of owning the digital asset XRP and being able to offer it to their clients. In Wisdom Tree's latest report, they cited this: we identify XRP as superior to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana for an institutional basis trading through regulated onshore markets. That means they think this is a better technology and has more opportunity as opposed to some of these other digital assets. Now, think about this as well, Mario. The October ETF approvals would coincide perfectly with what we see for a 4-year bull market. We're also talking about the passing of the Clarity Act, which could onboard 3 billion new users when products like Apple, Facebook, Google all launch crypto wallets across all their different platforms. We are on the precipice of telling people it's happened. Mass adoption is here, and there's only a few more months leading up until these deadlines. It's so exciting that we can sit here in 2025 and identify these dates on the horizon, letting us know that major change is coming, and these prices are about to become dramatically different over these next 6 months. In 2024, XRP went up 400% in a month. If we did that same percentage gain today, we are looking at a $12 XRP. If you think that's possible, one's in chat. Mario, floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say, I do think it's possible because it happened before. So, what we're seeing right now is something that for the longest of time, and you say this all the time, Abs, you say that Bitcoin and Ethereum had the free pass, right? And so for the longest of time, people like me and you, groups like this, we speculated on everything else outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum. We speculated on the fact that XRP was a technology that was here to stay and that was going to be used in many different ways. But much like other cryptos as well, Ondo, and you're a big proponent of AVAX. You really like AVAX, and we've been getting really nice news over the last few days with regards to AVAX. So for the longest of time, my point is, for the longest of time, we saw beyond the obvious, and the obvious was that Bitcoin and Ethereum were getting the adoption first, but we also speculated that there was going to be other technologies that not necessarily would beat Bitcoin and Ethereum, but could become, top technologies, much like Bitcoin and Ethereum from an adoption perspective. And what we've seen over the past 12 months, we've seen a transition where the United States goes from suing Ripple and therefore, attacking XRP to now embracing it. The current sitting president has mentioned XRP in a few posts on Truth Social a couple of times. So what we've seen is we've seen people just become more aware of XRP. And I think that we should expect that more going forward. We should expect other cryptos as well to start to get more exposure and for people to start to understand, especially those that used to, I wouldn't say be against crypto, but be oblivious to it. They're going to start coming around. They're going to start saying, okay, I listened to this piece on Bloomberg, or I listened to this piece on NBC, whatever, that talked about XRP and what it's used for, and talked about how this institution was leveraging it, and talked about how tokenization is taking place over on this blockchain. People are going to start getting that type of information now, which is something we speculators have assumed was going to happen for a long time. But the exciting part, and that's where it kind of ties with the fact that we're early, is that this is only about to take place. And we're going to transition from a speculative environment, didn't have regulation, to now having regulation, being adopted, and moving towards that utility phase. And that's why I think it's super important. Anybody that's listening to this now realizes how early you are from that perspective alone, from the perspective that we're not talking about utility yet. We're talking about testing these environments, but not full-blown utility. Full-blown utility is when you're swiping OMNI credit card that gets you rewards in XRP, right? When you're using these technologies without necessarily realizing you're using the technology, when you're using these technologies in a frictionless way. So we're headed there, and we're so super early, and that's the part that gets me super excited and optimistic into the this future of crypto.
Well, guys, be sure to stick around as we are going to cover the brand new XRP credit card that was launched by Gemini. But if you're enjoying this content, smash that like button and be sure to subscribe as you get an update every single day. But Mario, it's not just the United States adoption of XRP that's important. It is the global adoption, and that extends all the way into China as Link Logos, a leading Chinese supply chain fintech service, is tapping the XRP ledger for trade finance rails. Now, recently, starting this morning, a leading Chinese supply chain fintech provider, Link Logos, announced a strategic partnership with the XRP ledger. The two parties will jointly facilitate the deployment of global digital supply chain finance applications on the XRP ledger and drive its large-scale commercialization. As part of the core collaboration, Link Logos will integrate its global digital supply chain finance platform onto the XRP ledger mainnet to enable the circulation and cross-border settlement of digital assets backed by real-world trade flows. This partnership only marks the beginning into the global decentralized financial ecosystem, but also demonstrates the company's continued innovation in cross-border trade finance. These are the developments we've been waiting for several years. And when people bring up the 1,700 NDAs that were disclosed during the lawsuit, Mario, it is companies just like this that I think are under those non-disclosure agreements. Whether you think it's an American company or internationally, more demand for the XRP ledger and more demand for blockchain products, it's only going to become more important for these companies to compete in a global market. And I think a great example of this is the update I just read prior, where the US government just announced they are going to be publishing economic data on blockchain going forward, probably leveraging many of the blockchain protocols that we talk about every day. What are some of your thoughts on Link Logos leveraging the XRP ledger and the fact this is probably going to set the tone for hundreds of companies all across the world?
You know what's crazy, Abs? For the longest of times, we had to think of ways to be bullish on XRP. Now it's hard to think of ways not to be bullish on XRP. This is just one of the use cases, right? This is just one of the use cases that we know XRP and Ripple is tackling, not to mention all of the other use cases and all of the other verticals in which Ripple has positioned themselves towards. I mean, again, it's so hard to not be bullish right now on Ripple and obviously everything that Ripple's, all the efforts that Ripple is putting in towards developing on the XRPL and providing solutions through the XRPL. So again, I think that news like this are going to become more common. I think that moving forward into an environment where there's going to be that clarity piece, where there's going to be no longer an SEC versus Ripple as part of reality, I think what we'll see is the NDAs, absolutely. But I think that we will also see companies that are not part of the NDAs also start to become interested and become intrigued and want to participate with these technologies. And, you know, I've said this before, when you think about a company in the Web3 space, in the crypto world, right, that provides institutional type of solutions, and you come across a company like Ripple, to me, they scream professionalism. They scream, institutional grade. It's the type of company that, as an institution, you would want to work with. So they're really getting in a good position, and oftentimes we've also compared them to being kind of like the Amazon of the crypto space, because tokenization, custody, cross-border payments. They're now also with the stablecoin tokenization. I mean, they're spreading themselves in so many different directions, which at the same time, it does make sense. Like, it's not like they're doing all these things and they don't make sense. They make sense. They fit right into the business model and they benefit the underlying technology, which is XRP. So it's so hard not to be bullish on it.
Well, Mario, we talked about a lot of bullish catalysts for the XRP community. You can now add an XRP credit card to that very list. And if you guys are enjoying this content, smash that like button and leave a comment underneath the video. This is the brand new Gemini and XRP card. You can now receive 4% back paid in XRP, starting with the Gemini card. Here it is.
This is the XRP edition of the Gemini credit card, effortlessly earning you XRP every time you swipe. Gas, groceries, Ubers, restaurants, it doesn't matter. With every swipe, XRP automatically stacks in your portfolio, because sending money across borders is a pain. It's slow, expensive, and a thing of the past. But with XRP, you could move money anywhere on Earth in seconds. Instant, cheap, 24/7. And in the past 5 years alone, XRP's up over 1,000%, with the US government considering adding it to their digital asset stockpile. But here's the problem. Buying XRP for the average person can be confusing until now, because the XRP credit card acts like a normal credit card while automatically rewarding you with a small amount of XRP on every purchase. So instead of getting cash back, you get XRP back. Get the XRP credit card today. Your future self will thank you.
Well, Mario,
this is the XRP edition of the Gemini.
Well, Mario, most people are using credit cards at the grocery store and at the gas pump, and when they're out shopping at retail stores like a Target or a Walmart or a TJ Maxx. Why not get paid in XRP? And I have a lot of friends who do this with frequent flyer miles. They'll leverage a JetBlue credit card. They'll leverage an Amex card, and they're getting points back to take free flights. Why not invest in your future by receiving XRP in return for your everyday purchases? I think this is a phenomenal update, not only for the experienced crypto investors, but for the people who are new to the market and want to build a long-term portfolio. Buying XRP without having to go on the exchange and actually buy it, I can't think of a better way to get new people involved and to expand on the growing ecosystem that already exists today. If you would use an XRP credit card, smash that like button. But Mario, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, Abs, this is why companies like Gemini and companies like Coinbase are shaking up the traditional markets, the traditional, banks and financial institutions, because they're thinking outside the box. They're introducing, revolutionary products that have never been used before. And for me, you asked the question. For me, I 100% would prefer to receive rewards in XRP and Bitcoin and many of these other assets, because I could take it as sort of like a saving/investment type of approach where I'm spending the money anyway. I got to pay bills anyway. I got to put gas, you got to do all these different things that you have to spend the money. But I would much rather get an asset that has the history of appreciating in value, that has the potential to appreciate in value, versus receiving rewards in just dollars, right? Which I get it. We could use the dollars for dollar related stuff, but it's not, a dollar is always going to be a dollar. So it's products like this that honestly, I think are going to create a new demand in the market. It's going to put pressure in traditional banks. And that's why I think we can see companies like Visa and companies like MasterCard and even, big payment giants like PayPal, we can see them be so open to introducing crypto related services because they see this as a transition. They see this much like a Blockbuster to Netflix type of moment, and they don't want to get left behind.
Well, Mario, you said it prior. Amazon, Apple, Uber, all these companies are going to be leveraging blockchain, and it's most likely they're going to rely on United States blockchains going forward. Ripple and the XRP ledger are at the center of this entire movement. And you shared this really interesting piece of data. Amazon does over $6 billion a day in daily volume, cross-border. They could save $40 million daily by leveraging a product like the XRP ledger. And I think that's why the Chinese company is leveraging it. I think that's why companies all across America will start to use these digital assets. But live chat, if you would use the credit card, one's in chat, two's if you wouldn't. We appreciate you guys. Smash that like button, and we'll see you all in the next one.